edition of the Wonderberry Podcast.
I'm Brian.
And I'm on time.
You can find us online at wonderberry.com.
You can find me online at Open Dark Wing.
You can find me all over the fucking country this summer. I'm not on time. I think the last 3 weeks I've posted late because we started recording late. Normally we record on Wednesdays, and today, I don't even know what today is.
Today is Friday. Yes.
So I think the last 3 weeks we've recorded on Friday.
Well, we were really good on Wednesdays, and then I started school, and so Wednesdays were no longer an option because I had class when we normally record, so we switched to Thursdays. And then I ended my classes, and we attempted to switch back to Wednesdays, but everything just kind of got thrown all up. And the reason why we were trying to switch back to Wednesdays is that my summer classes, which start in like 10 days from time of recording, are going to be Tuesdays and Thursdays. So Thursdays is going to be back out. Wednesdays is going to be back in. We're like, all right, we can do this. And then life happens.
Yeah, because it's summertime and I'm working festivals and I'm gone. I'll probably be gone like every weekend through the whole summer, as per usual.
Damn.
Yeah, which was what's happened the last couple of weeks was, get recorded, and then I'm like on the road, like working a show, and I don't like. The show might be all day Friday or all day Saturday or all day both days. And then by the time Sunday comes around, I haven't gotten back to sitting down and recording. But also, I'm so exhausted because festivals are like, everybody will show up at a festival, and think like, oh, it's like 6 hours of fun. But for me, it's already been like 2 days worth of work. And then the day of the festival is like a 15-hour day of nonstop work. And then Sunday, I am fucking exhausted. Because we have to get everything assembled, make sure like we spend like the week before fixing anything that went wrong at the last show, the cable breaking, or if we blew a speaker or whatever, we gotta tear that all apart, fix it, get everything loaded back up in the trailer. And then like some shows we set up like the day before. Like yesterday was Thursday, and I went to Wabash and we set up the stage, and then the sound came in after us. And we just like built all, like they're doing a Friday, Saturday thing. So we built everything yesterday on Thursday. And that was like the whole day, but then we still have like, I'm not doing anything today, but I think I got to go down tomorrow and then Sunday again. Yeah, it's a lot of long days. Yesterday I left the house at 7:30 and didn't get back home until like 5. And it's exhausting building a stage out on pavement in the sun.
Oh yeah, and thankfully we're having kind of a drought and it's not humid as shit.
Yeah.
But 90 degrees is still 90 degrees no matter how you cut it. And it's been consistently 90 plus the last several days.
Yeah. Brutal sun yesterday. We were out.
Oh yeah.
We were at a Harley Davidson store in Wabash. We're like pulling all of our stage decks off of the trailer. They weigh like there's 2 kinds of the decks that we have. We have a 2-leg and we have a 4-leg, and the 2 legs weigh I think we figured 150 or 175 pounds, and then the 4-leg ones weigh 200 pounds.
Oof.
And there's 12 of them. So we're pulling those off, and this other trailer pulls up, and they're getting their stuff out, and they have like a big enclosed trailer, and we hear them running a winch, and then we see this cart thing come off of the back of the trailer. We're just like, whoa! They have this like flatbed cart that has all of their. So this was the Globe of Death, was what they were setting up. So they had this whole big globe stacked up on a little cart. Not little, really. It was, it was pretty good size. And they were rolling that off of their trailer. And we're just looking like, damn, now that's an idea. So we're getting our stage set up, and they're kind of watching us work because we're just tearing through it, kicking ass. And then we stop and we're watching them while like, what in the hell is this thing? So we ended up going over and chatting with them a little bit. And what they do is they build this big dome cage. It's a big sphere. And then they get in there with a motorcycle and ride around on the inside of the sphere on a motorcycle. And then they bring a second motorcycle in. Then they bring a third one in. And then they bring 2 ladies in to stand under them while 3 motorcycles are spinning around on the inside of the sphere.
Us.
So we got to chat with them for a little bit. That was pretty wild.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And it was cool because I'd like seen that online before, but then we actually got to meet the guys and like chat with one of the guys that actually rides a motorcycle in the cage. So if you look up Globe of Death on YouTube, you can actually find the people that we talked to and set up with.
Oh, I know who they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my guilty pleasures is those high octane freaking stunt type people. Kind of got
Yeah.
started when I was in the Navy. There was they were having a safety. They called them safety stand downs. So every quarter or so, they dedicate an entire day to talking about safety. So you don't do normal work. You just hear about all these people and all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that they were doing was they were going to have some demonstrators come in for like motorcycle safety and other stuff. And it was the early days of Nitro Circus guys showed up. And that was pretty cool because like not very many people knew who they were. Like they knew who, they knew X Games and stuff like that, but they didn't really know the Nitro Circus guys yet, other than Pastrana. So that was kind of cool to kind of meet, and I think I have a poster somewhere with autographs of a lot of those guys. So
That's something I'm not good at doing, is like getting like pictures or autographs with people because we we do shows, and we'll be with some like pretty big name bands and pretty kind of crazy big name stuff like that. And I'm just like, I'm always busy working, so it never really dawns on me like, hey, stop and take a picture with this guy. Like,
yeah,
hey,
I'm not big.
Here's a famous person.
There's a handful of signatures that I would like to get, but I'm not a big. I don't know. I'm not as big as a signature person as I used to be. I mean, I don't know what it is.
Yeah. I've always been pretty good about not being like fangirly or whatever when I meet a celebrity, you know? Like when we ran the store, I met so many people in the store that just we were right. We were like a block away from a big music venue in Grand Rapids.
Yeah.
So we'd have artists come in all the time, you know, and it was always pretty. I was always pretty nonchalant, just like, oh, cool. Yeah, what can I help you get? I'm like, oh yeah, I know you. You know, there's one guy. So, do you know the Black Crowes, the band?
I think so.
Their singer, his name's Chris Robinson. Um, Christy's a huge fan of the Black Crowes. She loves them a lot. And he came in, and I just kept looking at him. I'm like, God, I know this guy from somewhere. And well, I hadn't seen a picture of him in like 15 years, and he had aged quite a lot. So he had, his hair was like mostly gray and gotten way longer, and he's starting to look, scraggly and old. But then like he was trying to pay with a card, and his card wasn't working, and I ID'd him, and I read the name Chris Robinson, and I'm like, fuck, is this Chris Robinson from the Black Crowes? So he like called one of his team. He's like, hey, I'm trying to buy some stuff. Can you run cash over? Because my card doesn't want to work. So I I like I left him out front for a second, and I ran in back because my phone was in back, and I was like, quickly Googled Chris Robinson, and I was looking at the picture, and I'm like, God damn,
That's
that
him.
is him. And that was the only time where I was like, hey, you're Chris Robinson, right? From the Black Crowes and Chris Robinson Brotherhood. And he's like, yeah. He's like, my wife adores you. Could I get a picture with you? Like it was the only time where I like was like, hey, can I get a picture with you, customer? So um another one, I had the bass player from Sublime in. And like that was another one. I was looking at him like, God, he looks familiar. And he was walking around, he was looking at stuff, and I was trying to help some other people, and then I noticed the back of his shirt said Sublime with Rome Tour. And then it finally clicked. It was Eric, the bass player from Sublime. And that was the only time where I got like choked up fangirly ever. Like I had a hard time talking to him because I'm a bass player. And so like
Yeah.
when I was learning to play bass, there's like five or six different bands where I sat down and like learned the bass lines and learned how they worked and
You
learned
learn theory crafting from other people. Yeah. I
yeah.
mean,
And
everyone kind of does that with whatever they're doing, especially creatively.
yeah. And he was one of those. Like Sublime was one of the bands where I sat down and like studied the bass lines and studied his parts and learned what he was doing. And it was like once I realized who it was, like I was like I couldn't even think to get like a picture of. I couldn't think to get an autograph. Like my brain just turned off, and and then after he left, I was like, I had to go smoke a cigarette. It was just like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, did I just meet a hero? What the fuck just happened? Like,
Yep.
and then it was like hours later, I'm like, son of a bitch! I didn't get a picture. I didn't get an autograph. Fuck! Like, I'll probably never meet him again in my life. God damn it!
Yeah, I kind of had something similar. This was early on Navy wise. This was before we had like cell phone cameras. I think this was like '04 when this happened to me. Or it was still '03. It was late '03. Anyway, I was on a flight, and I at the time, and even now, I less now, but at the time I was a really big wrestling fan. And in uniform on orders. I sit down in my seat and stuff, and this guy kind of shuffles past me, and he's got a hat kind of low over his eyes, and we're just kind of sitting. I glance over, and I'm like, oh my God, it's this wrestler that I really liked. And I was like, okay, how do I do this? Because one, I'm freaking out fangirling internally. And two, he obviously doesn't want a whole, like, he was going to great extremes to try to hide who he was and stuff. So we kind of made a little bit of small talk here and there, but I didn't bring anything up. And just as we were about to land, he's like, you do know who I am, don't you? And I said, yeah, I just wanted to give you a good flight. So he kind of gave me a hug afterward. He was like, man, good luck with everything. Because I was in uniform. He's like, good luck with everything and hope everything works out for you. And I didn't get an autograph and obviously no, cell phone pictures at that time.
Mm-hmm.
That's the crazy thing, just thinking about now, is how much cell phone technology has changed since, like, having cameras and photos and stuff. I'm like, holy shit. It's probably a good thing that not everybody had a cell phone camera when I was in the Navy, because that would have been bad.
Yeah. I wish I was better at using them.
I'm getting better. I'm still not to where I want to be, but I'm getting a lot better at using my getting pictures of events and stuff. And like family events, I've turned into kind of the de facto photographer. I've learned if I rely on just my cell phone for taking pictures, I won't take any goddamn pictures.
Yeah.
If I bring my mirrorless camera, I'll take 150 pictures. So it's like, I just, because if I take the time to pack up and bring my camera, there's
You're gonna
something
use it.
there's something that's triggered in my head that says, you took the time to disconnect it from your computer, to bring it upstairs, to swap out the dummy battery for an actual battery. You need to use this thing, and I'll use it, and I'll take some really, really good pictures. But if I'm just relying on my cell phone, it'll just sit in my pocket and I'll forget about it, because it's something I carry with me all the time.
Yeah.
It's a really weird mental jump that way. And I don't know if that's like that for everyone or not, but yeah, I'll take a zillion pictures if I actually bring the physical camera.
Yep. That's the same thing I do. If I take the camera, I'll take a shit ton of pictures, but if I only have my phone, I'm not good at that.
Yeah.
I am kind of good at like catching some random things. Yesterday, um I got behind a car and the license plate said Bug's mom, and we call Dominic Bug. And
Oh, yeah, yeah,
I was like, oh, that bitch has our license plate. And it's following, and we were coming up on a stop sign, and I was like, oh, I can take a picture of that. Like, was able to pull my phone out of my pocket, get the camera loaded, and zoom in enough to get a picture of her license plate so I could show Christy and Dominic that there was an imposter about. So I at least had some quick enough thinking about that.
yeah.
Do that.
I'm I'm a big fan of flight, helicopters, airplanes, that kind of, small stuff like that, right? And
Yeah.
I was coming back home from KFC last night, driving past the hospital on the Parkview Vandalia, and the life support flight helicopter was coming in. So I stopped across the street at that Catholic church, and I'm watching this thing because it flew like right over my head, and then was going to be landing. And it wasn't until it touched down that I went, my phone is sitting right here. Why didn't I take any pictures or videos of this? So I grabbed a couple of pictures because I thought about it, of, the helicopter after it had landed, and they shut it down so that it wasn't going to like take back off. And I'm like, well, I got food that's getting cold, so I got to get it home. But I'm kicking myself for not thinking about that earlier. And like,
Yeah.
pictures and video is kind of my creative outlet thing, and I'm like, how did I miss this? And
You just
it goes back to having specialized equipment, and so when I have that out, that's what I think of versus, I have a 4K video camera on my phone and it's an actually halfway decent one. Why am I not doing more with this?
yeah, it's crazy
Oh,
how good phone cameras have got. I remember when I had a I had a uh, SLR camera,
yeah.
and when like iPhones started to become a thing, and everybody was posting these like grainy ass iPhone pictures of like hashtag photographer. And I always bitched about that so much. I'm like, you've got an iPhone, you're not a fucking photographer. Like you're just taking pictures. You're not a fucking photographer.
Yeah.
But now it's like up to the point where you can do that almost that level of photography on a fucking phone in your pocket.
The one
Like,
thing that phones haven't caught up, yes, they do take raw images and stuff,
yeah,
but when you start doing colorization and you start playing around with the raws on phones, you realize very quickly how shallow the color depth of field is in them. They look great processed and with their algorithm processing and stuff, but if you're trying to get certain stylized moods from cell phone cameras and you're doing it yourself, you realize how limiting they still are.
yeah.
And
Well,
that's not to say that they're terrible. I'm just saying that there still is a very big market and reason why I like taking pictures with my DSLR, or I guess it's not, it's a mirrorless, but you get what I mean.
yeah,
With an actual physical camera because of what it can do. And there's a reason why I'm saving right now for a dedicated video camera, because there's stuff that it will be able to do and handle that just blows anything else out of the water.
yeah. Yeah,
And
that's
and
getting
that's
that's getting niche now.
yes. Yeah, and like I said, if all you're producing for is, Instagram, and I guess YouTube now, they're starting to, you can get a lot more fancier with YouTube, but if all you're doing is compressing it all down for social media, then it doesn't matter what you do, it's going to look the same.
Yeah.
And, that's not a bad thing from any stretch of any imagination at all.
I
Um,
I had a breaking point kind of recently when I set up a website for somebody and I was showing them how to use there's the you I was showing them how to use the app on their phone to create a product to put on their site. And I was like, and I got the title in, we worked on the description, and then in the app there's just a button you press, it opens the camera, and then you start taking your product photos. And so I'm like training this person on how to do their product photos
yeah.
easily on their phone. And I was like, and I got to thinking about it later. I was like, God damn it. 10 years ago, I used to charge to come in with a DSLR and my box in the whole my box, my lights, my camera. I used to
Yep.
charge to come in and take all of the product photos. And I just trained this lady to do that for me.
Yep.
I know, and that's something I'm not doing as a service anymore because,
Yeah. No, it's annoying. The other thing that
but
I really have learned about physical cameras is the effects you can do with f-stops.
yeah,
And that still is lost on cell phone photography.
yeah,
You can sort of get some of the effects through after processing, but when you blow those up to any larger than the size on your screen, you can really see the artifacting in some of that post processing, even with some of the best post processing out there, like,
Yeah.
from either Google or Apple. You can still, even something as simple as a bokeh effect, you can still really see the artifacts from the post processing in that.
I think there's still the issue of people not knowing the difference in quality of
Well,
things.
and
Like even
and, and
even with file formats,
yeah,
the amount of
and
times where people have sent me like a 200 by 120 pixel JPEG for a logo, for a logo.
JPEG JPEG should be outlawed in photography. I'm gonna say that right now.
It should be outlawed
JPEG,
everywhere.
it should be, well, that, yes. But JPEGs are one of the worst current, and I say current because it's still used, but current freaking, yeah, it's terrible. I don't know why people love it so much.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's so widely used, especially in photography. Why is JPEG the default in cell phone photography or even the default in point and shoot cameras? Why is it
Don't know.
JPEG? Other than it's highly compressed, so you can get a lot more images in the same space.
Dave, why does Facebook still serve JPEG images?
Because
I figured that
it's
out the other
cheaper.
day.
It's cheaper to serve it in JPEG images than anything else.
No.
Because no,
That can't. No, there's no way. It would be cheaper to let people upload a JPEG and then convert it to a WebP. Like
okay.
that's literally what like every other service does because WebP serves better on the web.
Yes, it does serve better on the web and it is smaller on the web. But if that's not built into your framework, that's time and money to do that. That means you have to put developers dedicated to it to scrub through all of the code to figure that out. That's probably 3 people, 6 months to a year at the prices that they pay. You're now looking, and that's stuff that they aren't doing, they're taking away from doing something else. So when you start looking at, okay, how are we serving, who's our demographic for Facebook right now? What's the demographic for Facebook right now?
Boomers.
Okay, do boomers give a shit if it's WebP or JPEG?
Do boomers give a shit?
Because they aren't going to download the image and then re-upload it as a
I
share. They either hit share or they screen cap their entire fucking screen, crop out what they don't want, and repost it.
They do not crop out what they do.
So
Sometimes they
is
take
it worth,
sure
is it for
with their
someone like
phone of the screen on their laptop and then somehow reshare that with their fingers on in the way.
So if that's your demographic, are you really going to spend the time, energy, and money to allow for WebP?
God damn it, Dave! Stop being right.
I'm just looking at it from a developer standpoint, because as elementary as that sounds, if it's not built into your framework, that's an entire undertaking.
That's what we're saying is Facebook hasn't updated their framework since 2008.
And they don't have to. That's the thing for them, is because Facebook, the social media platform, is a dying platform. They're dumping their time, energy, and money into Instagram and WhatsApp and apparently this metaverse thing that still hasn't come to fruition.
Yeah. I bet you none of that serves anything other than JPEG. I know Instagram serves JPEG because I had to go steal some logos from there too.
Yeah.
They try real hard to hide their images.
Yeah, they do. But I mean, it's just, it's wackadoodle, and it doesn't make, for us, for people like us, it doesn't make sense. But when you start breaking down everything else and you start putting dollars dollars to minutes is the way they look at things. And it's like, okay, what if we're going to spend this money and this time, what is the benefit that we are getting by switching from JPEG to WebP?
Yeah,
And I would
server
I
speed enhancements.
I would argue, but I mean, what is
Bandwidth.
how much more are we talking here though?
Okay, hold on. Let me pull one up for you as a as an example. Where am I at here? Oh, I didn't save any of their JPEGs, did I?
I mean,
It's
that's just it's one of those weird things. And there's I don't know. I mean,
here's here's
thankfully,
here's a 1080 by 1080 PNG. It's 651 kilobytes. Here's a 1080 by 1080 WebP image at 118 kilobytes.
so we're yeah, so
So
it's
a tenth or a sixth of the size. Where's where's the JPEG? Here's a JPEG. Oh, that's not the same size. Here's the 200 by 120 they sent me.
I mean, most browsers take WebP now. Will
Mm-hmm.
accept WebP. I wonder if someone's
So
dived into why Facebook and Instagram doesn't use WebP.
here's a 1080 JPEG, 989 kilobytes. So a ninth of the size.
It looks like yeah, I don't know. All right, someone July of last year did a test to upload WebP images across popular social networks to find out which ones supported sharing URLs that have WebP image as its social image. And Facebook, Pinterest, and Twitter all worked. Instagram, LinkedIn, and WhatsApp did not.
Instagram didn't, but Facebook did.
If you shared, so what it does is when you share a URL with a WebP image, instead of like uploading the image directly and you share the URL, it shows the image.
Hmm.
Instagram does not allow uploading of WebP images. LinkedIn failed. If you send a WebP image directly, WhatsApp works. So a lot of them. So I guess what it comes down to is. So here's the other problem that I have with uh the other problem that I have with WebP is that editing them, you have to jump through more hoops.
Mm,
Same
I
with
don't.
WebM. I have to convert them before I can edit them in any mainstream NLE.
I use GIMP and I have to do none of that.
Yes, but you also use GIMP, which
Yeah.
has half, if not more, less than anyone else. I like GIMP. GIMP's open source. GIMP is awesome. But because it's open source is why it's usable for that. I don't know why it's not being more widely used.
Yeah. I don't get that either.
It should be, but there's, you know, like with anything else that well, and the other thing is that let's see, WebM and WebP are being pushed by Google, right? They're kind of
Yeah.
the okay. That alone, if I was running a massive thing, I would be very skeptical of supporting anything that Google was throwing out. I'm sorry. I don't trust them to stick around with their shit
They
anymore.
they they build it into YouTube though. WebM was built into YouTube.
It was, yeah, but they don't deliver out of WebM all the time. And they do the conversion themselves to save space on. They don't require me to upload a WebM.
You're not required, but you can.
I don't know. It's it's an interesting it's an interesting thing.
Yeah. Well, WebM is the VP8 and VP9 that AV1 is built on.
I don't know why Adobe does not support WebP.
I don't understand.
That doesn't I don't know. Windows app, the Photos app for Windows will not open WebP either.
Mm.
Windows 11.
Wait a minute. Where's the Photos app?
Unless they've added it, but there was people that are having issues of it as of April of this year. So I don't know. Okay, as of late May, Photoshop 23.2 Photoshop now provides full support to the WebP file format. So as of 2 weeks ago, Photoshop now has support for WebP. Here's the other reason. Apple. Maybe this has changed, but because even though WebP was released as an open source format, it was designed to give a commercial advantage to Google and Android. And Apple did not and does not necessarily view it as a universal option. Therefore, they were blocking WebP for a while.
So the freaking Photos app, the Photos app doesn't show me a webp, but I can in File Explorer.
There you go. So until everyone gets on board, they're not going to utilize it for a standard because
Yeah,
it doesn't.
Microsoft.
It's not a standard, and I'm wondering. I don't. Does webp have licensing issues?
It's all open source.
It doesn't matter if it's open source or not.
It's free.
It's yes, but that doesn't necessarily mean. So here's the problem with utilizing open source software inside of a closed source container is you can't do it. Open source licensing dictates that if it's being used in conjunction with, everything has to be open. That's one of the biggest hurdles of open source in a closed source. It's why Windows does not support, or did not for a long time support, a lot of open source stuff that was depending on what the open source licensing was. So I'm trying to remember how that all works because of the way that it kind of, like, there's a lot of tricks and intricacies in incorporating in, because webp isn't just a file, it's a whole container system. It's not just a file system.
Yeah.
It's an entire container system, which is much deeper than just having a file. Because it sits in the riff container, I think.
No, it was built on Riff. It's its own container built on Riff and contains VP8.
There's got to be a technical reason why it's not just as simple as adding in a plugin library. Because if it was just as simple as adding in a plugin library, it shouldn't be a huge deal. And why they wouldn't have that, I don't know. But it's interesting. Wait, what? There's a license for company use? No. That's got to be something else.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've not seen anything about any sort of licensing.
Apparently there's a lot of, everyone's starting to go webp very quickly now. WebP. All right, what is the BSD licensing? I don't know. I'm trying to remember what the BSD licensing allows for. I used to know all this stuff off like the top of my head.
Here's the license requirements for using WebP. Redistribution and use, with or without modifications, are permitted provided the following conditions are met. must retain the copyright notice.
So they would have to.
So when it says supports webp, they need to put a thing under webp copyright 2010 Google.
Under the BSD licensing, because that's what it's copyrighted as under BSD.
Yeah.
And if you're in direct competition with Google, you may not want to have Google plastered all over your shit.
Yeah. Well, it's not like it needs to be on, the front screen. It needs to be on that goes on, like when you go to the About page in Photoshop, I'll say WebM copyright is this, and, I might say, I'll probably say like PSD copyright Adobe.
IE does not support WebP still.
Yeah, IE does not get support.
No, but because so much corporate stuff still runs and requires IE support somewhere, it's a problem.
That's a corporate problem, not our problem, Dave.
It is a corporate problem, but when you're running an operating system for corporate people that are running old stuff, it's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I had somebody have some issues with their website loading. And I was working with them. I was like, I just could not figure out what their problem was. I could not recreate any of the issues. So I ended up having them do like a screen share with me and open it up. And they were running Internet Explorer. I was like, let's not use Internet Explorer then. And they're like, but that's what's on my computer. I'm like, okay, let's get you upgraded. We're talking about like less than 1% of internet traffic comes from Internet Explorer anymore, right?
Yes, something like that.
Yeah.
But the problem is that WebP also has issues with AppGuard. So if you're running a corporate structure that runs AppGuard to protect stuff, it will not display WebP images. Let me rephrase. An older version of AppGuard. But because AppGuard requires you to pay to upgrade, I mean, the U.S. Navy is still running. I mean, they're still paying for XP and Vista licenses. So for computers, because it's cheaper to do that than it is to upgrade. Because then you have to upgrade hardware requirements.
It's so stupid.
They pay almost, I think, how much? I don't remember how much they paid. Last I heard, it was like tens of thousands a month to maintain security patches for XP and Vista. Because the hardware they have, I mean, to be able to run current version of Windows, you have to replace all those hardware. And you got to think, for the carrier, there was probably close to 8,000 PCs on a carrier. And so now you're talking about now having to replace all of those PCs for new up-to-date Windows. But then the programs that we use to write things like evaluations and all of our maintenance databasing, everything in, all that stuff is all built on XP and Vista, with XP and Vista in mind. Those would break on 8 and further. So now you're talking about a complete restructuring of everything. And so when you start looking at those kind of things, I don't know. It's very interesting to me how things tie backwards that way. Like I totally get. I mean, the entire Navy maintenance system, the 3M system, was not designed for 8 higher. It was all designed for XP, and that would require a complete rewrite, and that thing is massive because there's specific restrictions that have to happen on what they can use and what they can't use from a security standpoint. And I know it sounds ridiculous.
That's how we get Congress people asking questions like, "Does this phone track me?"
Well, you get it. You get that kind of stuff. The other thing is that if you have all of the, you know, all of the shit turned on, then yes, it does.
Yeah.
I mean, that's if you utilize the Google Mesh, say like a Google Mesh system or other system, and you have all of the location tracking turned on, I can track my phone from room to room in my house. Depending on signal strength, if I have my house stuff put up, I could track my movement throughout my house.
Hmm.
So to ask that question, there's a lot of variables to it, but yes, I mean, it has the capability of doing something like that. Does it do
Yeah.
that as a default? No, there are a lot
No.
of things have to go in place, but if you say no, it can't do that, then that's a lie. It's some those questions are asked as a trap and a soundbite. That's
That
that's the problem with having, like, I agree that all committees and all that stuff should be public. But the problem is that we've turned into a system where everyone is going for a soundbite, and so questions are structured and built for sound bites, not for actual information.
that was
No one wants actual information anymore. They just want a gotcha sound bite.
that was one of the best ones because he was holding up this phone and going, "Does Google track my location? Like if I go from here over to there, will it know that I moved from here over to there?" And he's like, "Well, I'd have to see your phone to see what's turned on." And he's looking at it and he's like, "It's a yes or no question." He goes, "Well, it's an iPhone." Eh, So
But it's not, and that's the problem. They're asking it, and the moment he said it's a yes or no question and was ignoring the nuance of the answer, it became
mhm,
a sound bite.
yeah, which seemed like Sundar. Like knowing how that stuff works seemed like Sundar won that because he was like, "Well, it's an iPhone."
No, Sundar definitely, and that's the problem is they want to get these sound bites, but then they get in front of people who are infinitely smarter than them, and they just come across sounding like absolute blubbering buffoons.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's frustrating being working around tech and understanding how big of contracts are still stuck so far in the past without a real good path forward. And it's not necessarily an operating system. Well, there's hardware issues involved, but then there's other required software. I mean, that's one of the big things that really struck me, especially with like the Navy stuff. You know, people are like they mock the military for not upgrading, but then you start thinking about how many other required applications would then have to be changed and upgraded, and who pays for that upgrade path?
we do with our $700 billion.
But that's already allocated out to something else.
There, there's a
Then you have to
line.
ask
Oh,
for more money.
I gotta find this.
And
There's a song called Uncle Sam. Goddamn. by Brother Ali. Fantastic, fantastic fucking rapper. Uh,
The other thing is that when you're talking about military stuff, is
here,
justifications.
here he goes. You don't give money to the bums on a corner with a sign bleeding from their gums, talking about you don't support a crackhead. What you think happens to the money from your taxes? Shit, the government's an addict with $1 billion a week kill brown people habit.
Yeah, no, pretty much.
Yeah, I think about that line all the time. 3 out of 12 months, your salary pays for that madness. Man, that's sadness. What's left? Get a big ass plasma.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
I think one of the biggest issues that it runs into is cost justification. Hardware, uh, guns, tanks, planes. You're kind of in one hand, you're in a you're in a two-part race. One, you don't want your enemies to have better stuff than you because that puts you at a disadvantage. And two is human life safety justification. So, does the new body armor help save potential lives? Does it stop bullets better than the old? If the answer is yes, then you can justify it with saving human life. Does the new aircraft frame structure, or the new airplanes, or the new tanks, or the new bombs, are they better than our enemies? Does it help push us further and give us that tactical advantage? The answer is yes, then it gets an approval because of the tactical advantages. The problem with things like computers that are utilized to connect to internet, to connect out, to write evals, to if it's not broken and it's going to cost infinitely more to upgrade all of that hardware, where's the justification? It doesn't save human lives. It doesn't give us a tactical advantage. The
that's
only thing that it would do is it would save a monthly reoccurring bill.
the
But
the
then you have to justify
military.
rewriting all of that software that's been in there for decades.
Our military isn't in the business of saving human lives, Dave.
I'm no, but they have an invested interest in justifying costs by saving our soldiers' lives, not human lives, our lives, the people that are, you know, if you're trying to justify a new body armor, you have to prove that it's infinitely and it's on a scale, because if it's too low of a percentage of increase, it doesn't get approved. So
Yeah,
that's part of it. The other half of it is which congressman's um, district is it being built in?
yeah,
I mean, but I'm just saying that from a pure technical, all of the other nuanced stuff that goes on, like what we were talking about there, out of the equation, it's still a numbers game for justifying spending money. And that sounds weird with as much money as they get, but there's a reason why there is a justification of money, and they have to justify spending the money. I mean, shit, even, I was working as a firefighter. We had to justify to get, so for aircraft fires, you have those silver suits because it's a reflective, because aircraft fires tend to burn a lot hotter. You can't just use regular firefighting gear. It's got to be specialized. And so it's silver because it will reflect out so much more of the heat, and because the composites of aircraft, it actually burns. It's almost like a thermite fire versus a regular fire, which I'll come back to that in a minute, because people say that jet fuel can't melt steel beams, they don't know the first thing about aircraft fires. But because it's such a hotter fire than just, when you have those composites burning, you have to have specialized firefighting gear that you wear. And because it's specialized, it's also a hell of a lot more expensive. Just to justify so that we would be safe, because once it wears out, it loses that safety run. Even if they were worn out, it was still a struggle for us to get it replaced because of justification costs. It's been worn because we have to wear it on standby, but it's never actually been used in a fire. And so justifying those costs became, you had to run everything through like a spreadsheet type thing to get justification for cost. It's a whole weird fucked up system.
Stupid system.
But yeah, that's being an aircraft firefighter for years, anytime someone, that was one of the biggest things that I kept hearing about the towers coming down, is that, all the molten steel beam stuff that was down in the bottom that they found, and how jet fuel doesn't burn hot enough to melt steel beams. And that's very, very true. It doesn't. But the problem with the way aircraft are built now is they're built with composite materials because it's a hell of a lot lighter. The problem with that is that they're self-oxidizing. And so it becomes like a thermite fire, which can be lit on fire from a heat much lower than jet fuel, but it burns so much hotter. It's one of the reasons why, if we have a time limit on the deck of a carrier. If we didn't have the fire under control by a certain time, then standard operating procedure was, we have a big ass forklift that has a special E front to it that we push the goddamn plane off the boat, because if that gets out of control, it will just start melting through the ship straight down. And because it's so hot, and because it's a thermite style, and it's that whole style fire, water actually makes it burn hotter, because it's the reaction will separate the oxygen and hydrogen and just burn both of those. So water actually keeps it lit on fire. Aaron, go. What is the most common, especially old building, firefighting method? Sprinklers with water.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have a thermite style reaction that's going on with a burning airplane, and you're dumping a fuel source on top of it.
Right. That's why I keep boxes of baking soda in the shop.
Yep. And that's why for aircraft firefighting, we use a foam.
I also keep baking soda because I have some pretty caustic acids out there. Sometimes you gotta neutralize an acid, and the best way to do that's with fucking...
Your mom's a caustic acid.
You gotta neutralize your acid, and baking soda does that quickest.
Yeah. I don't know. It's the nuances. Anyway, going back to it, I just went on like two different tangents there. But
yeah.
Justification for military, you either have to justify that it gives you a tactical advantage, or you have to justify it by saving a soldier's life. And even if it's not a high enough percentage of either of those, they usually get denied. So upgrading computers, because reasons, when there is no tactical advantage, there is no human life advantage, kind of gets put in the bottom of the barrel. Now, what's eventually going to end up happening is that they're not going to be able to find hardware that will run old operating systems anymore. And it's going to happen anyway. And at that point in time, then they'll have to do it. But because it's the military and they haven't reached that point yet, they aren't going to make a change that big unless they're absolutely forced to instantly.
Yeah.
And it's dumb. It's stupid. It shouldn't be that way. But one of my favorite sayings is there's the way things should be, and then there's reality.
Hey, Dave.
Yes, sir.
What's the difference between a computer and an American citizen?
I don't know what.
An American has no troubleshooting.
Oh, that's good. As a
You're welcome.
leftist who carries, that's actually pretty good.
You're good. You're welcome.
I like it. I like that one. All right, man. Well, for everyone out there, these episodes will get out some point in time during a week.
Some week or another.
We have not failed to go 2 weeks without releasing an episode or skip out an episode completely.
We haven't failed
Yet.
a week.
We
I've
have not
just
failed a
been
week.
behind.
We've gone 9 days between episodes, 10 days between episodes, but we haven't gone a week yet.
Yeah.
Or 2 weeks yet.
I've also
what I
added a couple extra steps to the process. And I'm going to try a new step this week. So go look at the episode images and the thumbnails for the last couple of weeks and see what I'm talking about.
We got this.
Yeah.
Till next week, guys. Take care of yourselves. Drink a lot of water if you're going to be outside. It's especially here in the Midwest, it's very, very dry. And it doesn't feel like, when it's humid, you can feel yourself sweating. You feel a loss of water. Having lived for years in Southern California, where it's a very dry heat, you still get dehydrated just as fast, if not faster, and you don't notice it until it's really dangerous. So be safe out there, everyone. Drink lots of water if you're going to be outside.
Same thing in a pool or like when you're in water. When you're in water, you're still sweating.
Yeah.
But because you're in water, it's getting washed off and you don't notice you're sweating and losing hydration. So
drink lots
drink
of water. Please be safe out there.
All our homies hydrate.
Yes.